I never imagined that a dripping faucet could become the most unexpected moment of my life. The afternoon sun slipped through lace curtains, painting golden ribbons on the worn carpet. A hum from the refrigerator blended with the ticking wall clock, marking the house's quiet rhythm. Little did I know a stranger would step through that door and change the quiet of my days forever. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and write in the comments which city you are listening from. It means a great deal to us. My name is Eleanor. I am 67 now, and the house has kept its gentle hush since Harold slipped away 3 winters past. Each afternoon I boil water for chamomile tea, set it beside the window, and listen to the floorboards sigh under my steps. The garden outside is tended in a modest rhythm, rows of lavender and thyme nodding to a sun that feels familiar and kind. The evening light drapes the kitchen in amber, and I find myself arranging the teacups in a pattern I have never changed. One rainy Tuesday, the dishwasher began to leak, a thin ribbon of water staining the tile like a slow river. The sound of water splashing echoed against the copper pipes, and the faint smell of wet plaster rose from the floor. I stood in the doorway, the kitchen light flickering as the bulb struggled, and wondered if I should call someone. My hands trembled slightly, but the decision settled when I reached for the phone and dialed the first number that felt like a neighbor. The line rang, and a calm voice on the other end asked what was wrong, while the rain tapped the window pane in steady rhythm. I described the leak, the dampness curling the edges of my worn rug, and asked if he could come before nightfall. He agreed, his voice soft but steady, and promised to be there at 4, before the sky turned a deeper shade of gray. I hung the receiver, poured another cup of tea, and watched the kettle hiss, feeling a small thread of hope pull at my chest. When the doorbell chimed, I opened to a man in his early 50s, coat damp from rain, his smile calm as a summer lake. He stepped in without hesitation, the floorboards whispering under his steady shoes, and his hands carried a toolbox with worn leather straps. His eyes were a soft brown, holding a quiet depth that seemed to notice the tiny dust motes dancing in the amber light. We exchanged brief pleasantries about the weather, the rain's steady patter, and the way the garden had started to bloom despite the chill. When I noticed the way his fingers lingered on the brass doorknob, a gentle recognition that I could not have expected settled over me. He knelt beside the dishwasher, the faint scent of oil rising from the loosened pipe as he examined the cracked seal. A soft hiss escaped the valve, and a thin line of water traced a path across the tile, disappearing into the grout. I stood on the kitchen rug, feeling the warmth of the morning sun through the window as his steady breaths filled the quiet space. His hands moved with deliberate care, tightening the clasp and wiping away excess water with a clean cloth. The clock on the wall ticked in rhythm with his movements, each tick marking a small moment of connection that I could not ignore. When he paused, I poured fresh tea, the steam curling upward and mingling with the faint citrus from the lemon wedge he offered. I set the cup on the saucer, the porcelain cool beneath my fingertips, and felt a quiet gratitude settle in my chest. I brushed dust from the top of the bookcase, each swipe revealing a thin layer of golden light that had been hidden. He turned the faucet off, the last drip echoing like a soft sigh, and then slipped a small wrench back into his toolbox. The room seemed to contract a little, the two of us sharing the same breath and rustle of paper as I turned a page. A sudden tap on the window announced the rain returning, its steady rhythm turning the garden into a muted watercolor. He glanced at the storm outside, then offered to dry my hands on a towel, his fingers warm and surprisingly gentle. I accepted, feeling the towel press against my skin, and we both laughed softly at the unexpected comfort of the moment. He suggested we share the tea I had just brewed, and I nodded, the kettle humming a low note that blended with the rain. The window frame trembled as the wind pressed, yet inside the room the light grew golden, and the day lingered like an evening without hurry. When the last screw fell into his pocket, he stepped back, wiped his brow, and asked how the house felt after so many years. I smiled, reaching for the kettle again, and mentioned the garden had been waiting for spring patiently quietly. He nodded, his gaze drifting to the window where rain still traced thin lines, and said the house whispered stories it could no longer keep. I poured tea, and the steam curled like a soft sigh, while a distant car honked and the wind nudged the curtains gently. He asked quietly if I missed having someone else to talk to, and I answered without thinking about the question. My answer slipped out. Sometimes I miss a voice to fill the silence, even if it's just the hum of a refrigerator. He smiled, his eyes softening, and confessed that his own kitchen had been quiet after his wife passed, the dishes gathering dust. He added that he had been fixing other people's homes, not his own, because the work let him feel needed without being intrusive. His words resonated, and I realized the creak of my floorboards was not just age, but a rhythm of waiting. He chuckled, saying the only repair he truly craved was a conversation that didn't end with a goodbye. I leaned forward, feeling the heat of the teacup, and said I had not felt that kind of listening in years. He replied that loneliness is a quiet room, and sometimes two quiet rooms meet and notice each other without words. He set the wrench down and said, "Sometimes a small leak reminds us how easy it is for a bigger hole to open." I felt the line vibrate, the double meaning echoing the way my own heart had been leaking into his presence. When he paused, his gaze lingered on the tea steam, and I saw my own reflection in the quiet, a woman finally seen. We smiled, the room holding its breath as the clock ticked on, indifferent to the small bridge we had built between two empty chairs. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist, and a single sparrow perched on the windowsill, watching us as if it too waited for a word. I offered him a slice of lemon cake I had saved, and we shared it, the sweetness lingering like a promise we hadn't yet named. He thanked me, and in that moment the kettle's whistle seemed to echo a soft laugh, as if the house itself approved our quiet companionship. When he finally rose to leave, he placed his hand briefly on the doorknob, then turned back, and said the night felt less lonely now. I closed the door, the latch clicking with a gentle certainty, and I felt a warmth spread from the hallway to the kitchen, a reminder that some repairs truly linger. He gathered his tools, the rusted screwdriver glinting, and thanked me for the tea and the company today. He said he would return next month with fresh herbs and a new gardening plan for the backyard. We exchanged a quiet smile, each of us feeling the weight of the moment settle like a soft stone. I closed the door gently, the latch clicking like a soft promise, and watched his silhouette fade into the hallway. He mentioned planting tomatoes in early May, the seedlings already waiting in his car trunk for me here. I nodded, feeling the garden already humming with possibility, a reminder that spring would return again bright and hopeful. We decided on a weekend visit to the farmer's market, where the fresh scent would fill the kitchen. He laughed, saying the tomatoes would be sweeter after a week of rain and sunshine for you again. He stepped onto the porch, the rain having left a glistening path, and paused to look back at the kitchen light. I stood in the doorway, feeling the cool night air brush my cheeks, and listened to his footsteps fade. The house seemed to inhale, the silence swelling like a soft tide as he vanished into the street. When the door closed, I turned the knob once more, hearing its final click echo like a quiet affirmation. I walked to the dishwasher, the cracked seal now smooth, and felt the faint hum of completion deeply. I ran my fingers over the smooth edge, remembering how the house had creaked before his arrival quietly. A gentle sense rose inside me, as if the wall and my heart had been mended side by side. The night outside grew still, and I felt the house settle, breathing in the same rhythm as my own. I sit alone by the window, the garden now quiet, the sky tinged with stars softly in the night. The house whispers that small acts of care are seeds that grow in quiet soil within my heart. When we let someone in, even for a moment, we stitch a new thread into the fabric of our days. Remember, it is never too late to feel seen, because the heart always opens when someone truly looks.